Hey everyone, welcome to episode 317, Getting the Love You Want. Welcome to the Harmony in the Home podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hutchison. I'm a counselor, a life coach, and most importantly, an imperfect mom doing this work right along with you. And my goal on our podcast is to go from chaos to calm, feel less frazzled, and have more fun within your four walls to have more harmony in your home. What a fun title that is, huh? Everyone wants to get the love that they want. Before I talk about that, I want to talk to you about the letter writing that so many of you are doing, and so many of you are getting what's called drops. And I'm having so much fun helping you, and it's scratching my teaching itch of figuring out what your goals are, who you want to write to, how many you want to write to, all that good stuff, and then being consistent and having fun writing, because it's so therapeutic to kind of just disconnect and actually hand write again, which I haven't done in ages, but now I actually look forward to it, and I love it because it's so therapeutic, and it's a great way to kind of check out, because I turn it into a game and I just write and write and write and write, and I try to beat my time, and I turn it into a game and listen to my true crime while I'm doing it. And I know that so many of you are loving it too. And the cool thing about it is that you can write as little or as much as you want. If you're nervous and want to start slow, you can just do 10 a week. Who doesn't need an extra $50 a week? On average, you get around $5 a letter. So if you did 10 a week, which would take you no time, or 10 a day, each letter takes around 4 to 6 minutes. I have mine down to 3 minutes if I'm really boogieing. But if I'm just sitting there watching TV, then it's probably 4 to 6 minutes, including the envelope. And like I always say, the first payout takes the longest, but after that, you get paid regularly. The cool part about it is that there are no quotas, there's no sales, it's all offline, well, all off social media. And it's kind of like losing weight, where you have to eat clean and exercise, and then the scale doesn't move in the beginning, and you have to be super consistent in the beginning. And if you stay consistent and you eat clean, and let's say you have to lose 50 pounds in this analogy, and so you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, like the scale's not moving, the scale's not moving, the scale's not moving, and then you keep writing and you keep staying consistent, and then all of a sudden the scale starts moving, and it's so fun to watch. So if you're interested, send me an email or just click on the link in the email to get the training that I did, and let me know how you like it. So I am going to talk to you about so when I talk about different books, if you tell me an area of struggle that you're having, I will say, like if you're having a money issue, I will recommend a book that like changed my life in that situation. If you're having issues in your marriage, I'll give you a book that will top 3 books or a top book, and I'll rank them that really helped me in that journey. Or if it's parenting, or if it's getting your house organized, so I feel like I'm kind of like a triage nurse, where I still listen to personal development, but there were years that I listened to 52 books in 52 weeks. I was obsessive. If it comes to time management, I have great books, not that I wrote, but that I have read, and I have read them all. I've read them all on time management. I've read them all on parenting. I've read them all on marriage, not all, but you know what I mean. I've read a very, very large number of books, and they were all personal development books. So I would say if you need help in your marriage or your relationship with your loved ones, not even with your kids, the book Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix is probably my favorite for that topic, because it really teaches you how you're drawn unconsciously towards your partner, and how it's done all unconsciously based on the blueprint that you were given when you were younger. We learn from examples, we learn from non-examples, we learn from things that light us up, and we also learn from things that dim our light. Because a lot of times if we have any wounding from our childhood, then we go and find and seek a partner that has those same traits unconsciously, because we think that we can heal old wounds in current time. And so we find these people, these characters in our life to be on our stage to heal that old wound in current time. And if we're not aware of it, we end up oftentimes recreating the same pain, the same trauma. It just has a different flavor, different face, different character. So I saw this on the Mark Grove podcast. It was on an Instagram page called Create the Love. And apparently he has a very robust YouTube channel, which I didn't know about. And the title of Mark Groves, I've never heard of him. It's called the Mark Grove Podcast. I do everything on YouTube. As much as I podcast, I do everything, all my personal development on YouTube. Oh, by the way, when I said I read all those books, I actually listened to all those books. So I just consumed a lot of books on different topics. So this book that I listened to, he talks about on his podcast, Mark Groves. It was about a year ago. Has 19,000 views. It says, The Couple Who Changed How I Relate, Lessons from the Godparents of Love. So this was a summary I saw on Instagram that he has, Create the Love on Instagram. Mark Groves does. It kind of just gives clips from his podcast. But when you listen to this, your mind, if you're driving, just brace yourself because this is going to blow your mind. And this is literally the backbone of everything he talks about. And so he clips it here in this summary.
Your reactivity in your adulthood to your partner always is connected to a caretaker with whom you had the most difficulty in childhood. And I finally discovered you have more difficulty with one caretaker than you do with the other one.
What? Excuse me? What the? And Tony Robbins, I went to Unleash the Power Within. If you ever want to go to one of his events, UPW, which is Unleash the Power Within, is amazing. And then I thought, oh, well, Date with Destiny is almost double the price and longer. It's going to be just as good. Sorry, Tony, I was not as impressed with Date with Destiny. It was too long. It was too drawn out. I went with my friend Beatrice. We were separated on purpose because they wanted you to have a unique experience. I'm like, no, I want to do this with Beatrice. And that didn't happen with UPW. So anyway, if you ever have a choice between the two, UPW is better than DWD, in my opinion. And it's a lot cheaper too. It's not cheap, but it's cheaper. So he also talks about, because I can't really think of a parent that I had, like I had 25 of them, that brought a lot of anxiety for me. And so Tony Robbins talks about the caretaker of whom their love you craved the most. So what happens is if you craved it from someone more than the other, even if you got it, you could still crave it. And so you go into that relationship in your young adult relationships, and you go into those relationships with the same expectations and the same unmet needs or met needs and want to recreate it. And then you put all this unconscious pressure onto your current partner to fulfill that need. And I can probably promise on a stack of Bibles, or guarantee on a stack of Bibles, that they are not able to do it because they are coming to you with the same unmet needs from their unconscious patterns and their same unconscious pain and their same unconscious childhood wounding, and coming to you wanting that to be fulfilled and met as well. Do you see how that's just crazy making? But it's so cool to know, because you're like, oh, I don't need to ask for anything for my spouse as far as having him or her meet my needs, because I realize that it's an unmet need from my childhood, and anything they give me can be extra credit. And the purpose of being in a relationship is to have someone to love, which was a very powerful lesson I learned from Brooke Castillo about when you're in a relationship, it's the expression of that love is the gift that keeps on giving. So another part from the YouTube that he plays, the whole thing is about an hour long. And I want you to listen to this about unconscious association and negative impacts.
You know, mommy was good, daddy was bad, but there was something unbalanced by it. Maybe mommy just because she's more involved, or dad did something that was really terrible. So although he wasn't around much, his not being around much was what was the biggest wound. But whichever pattern of being present, whichever partner, whichever caretaker with whom you experience the most anxiety, and meaning got your primary need not met, to be seen. The primary need is to be seen and heard and valued. With whom you didn't get that much, you'll marry somebody who's similar to the caretaker with whom you did not get your needs met. Now, you can imagine how come that was really hard for me to even believe that research. But over and over and over again, there were no exceptions. Mm-hmm. So finally, at the theoretical level, it began to make sense. Of course, you wouldn't fall in love with somebody who's similar to the person from whom you got your needs met, because your driving force is the need that wasn't met. Mm-hmm. And the association in your unconscious with that need being met is with the person who didn't meet it. So the negative association is way more powerful than the positive association.
It's crazy.
Because that's a threat to being. That need not being met for the infant child, the baby and the infant and the early child, that need is connected to survival. So it's not negotiable. So you can imagine if it's not met, then you go throughout all your life with the same anxiety you had as a baby. So but you'll marry this person who is most like the person who didn't meet your needs, but you'll expect them to be like the person that you fantasize you needed to have that need met.
That's a strange trick.
And since they are not your fantasy,
Yeah.
and because they're similar to the caretaker who didn't meet your needs, they will not respond to those needs, not because they don't want to. They can't even imagine that need because it wasn't a part of their childhood. It's not in their conscious or unconscious. So when you come up and say, I really wish that you would hug me more, well, you came from a world where hugging was, you just don't do that.
Right.
Like if you were British, you don't do that, or whatever culture, it could be personal. And the interesting thing about that is what I want most, which I didn't get in childhood, is something that if you gave it to me, you would grow a part of yourself that didn't develop because of your childhood. So that the tension of the polarities is the point of the greatest creativity, healing for one, and the completing of a self aspect for the other.
Both sides.
Like the hugger, who didn't get hugged because there was something about hugging that was not okay in their family. So that was their. But so if they say, okay, you want to be hugged, I'll start practicing hugging, they'll eventually love it.
Yeah.
Because that was the need not met for them. So you have to stretch across these terrifying behaviors that were not a part of your childhood, were in fact part of the terror of childhood. Move across those things to become, and so you co-create in a dynamic, loving, growing relationship. You co-create each other because you come to the relationship unfinished, and you co-create each other. Then you both move into the joy of being. And that's what we were talking about in the lecture. This is what real love is, is that once you do that co-creation, then you don't have to keep doing all that stuff because now you have evolved to a higher level of consciousness. And you have also the behavioral technology to sustain that level. So if you do fall back because of some threat that you can't predict, and we are all vulnerable no matter what to that, you have the technology of relationship to say, okay, I'm remembering now that need I didn't get met, which was to be visible, and I'm feeling invisible. So that's my unmet need. So then here's the paradox. The way for me to get that need ultimately met is to say, okay, I need to be visible to Helen. So what I'm going to do is see what that would look like if I got it from her and give it to her. So at that point, I've finished the job. I've created in my mind that for me to be visible, Helen would have to spontaneously hug me. So that would really, whenever I'm around, she'd have to spontaneously hug me and tell me I'm a great guy or something like that. I will go do that to her. My brain has now imagined it and put it into action. And because the lower brain does not connect it to the outside world, but only to the prefrontal cortex, the inner rational brain, when I give it to Helen, my brain receives it myself.
Wow. So you're
So
like,
it's a
your
twofer.
need gets met.
It's a twofer. So I ultimately meet my own need by meeting the need that Helen has for me to meet her need.
Wow.
Now, why it was set up is so complicated, and why there's not a manual, and it took us about 35 or 40 years to figure all these minute details out. But in fact, the last thing we got clear was ultimately, for the yearning to stop, you have to become what you want and give that away, and somehow your brain finishes that cycle.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That's so cool.
But it's so hard to do.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about that.
Because our normal orientation is you get it from the outside, and which makes sense. You get the breast, you get the hugs from the mother and all that and so forth. There's never anything like I have to hold my mother to get held. But at the end, to do the repair, I have to become what I want.
Isn't that amazing? We have to give what our unmet needs are. And in that, we are healing. It's a twofer, like Harville says. I could talk about this book and how it helped me like over and over and over. But what I want you to do is go listen to the book, see how it applies to your life. And I just find this work so fascinating. David always jokes with anybody whenever the server comes over and I start to get chatty, they'll walk away and he'll be like, "You're going to ask about their childhood, aren't you?" Because I feel like, and I'm like, yes, I want to. I'm not going to because you guys all freak out when I do. Like, I start off very light, like, "Oh, where'd you grow up?" And they all look at each other like, "Oh no, she's going to Barbara Walters them." It's an ongoing joke. They always say, "Don't ask about the childhood." At one time, we were at a concert and with Janet and Steve Bow, and we went to Steak and Shake after the concert to get milkshakes and all the greasy food. And we were talking to the server, Janet and I were, and then the husbands were kind of to the side. And then I said something to the server, and then David says to Steve, and behind my back, he goes, "Just watch. She's going to ask about her childhood." And literally, it was like 10 seconds later, I'm like, "Oh, where'd you grow up?" And I didn't know this was all going on. And the guys literally like fell over laughing. I'm like, "What's so funny?" And then they told me later. But I'm so fascinated by people's stories and what went into their lives. Like, we don't just like grow up in a house and go to school and then not have things good and bad happen to us. And it doesn't mean that just because something bad happened to us doesn't mean that we're bad because of it. It's an experience that we had. The point of this podcast is not to recreate that pain and not to repeat it and not to create the legacy of pain to pass it on. Pass on the legacy of love. And we are going to pass on some pain, and that's normal. But when we're conscious about it, we can kind of let our kids know, like, "Hey, this is something I'm working through. This was something that was hard for me. So this is why some anxiety or some micromanaging or some helicoptering, like if I feel like I'm helicoptering my kids too much, especially now that they're teenagers, I will go within myself and figure out like, why are you so much anxiety around this? Like what?" And so I will have the conversation with my kids. I might be holding on a little bit tighter during this time because whether it's about the grades or about applications or friendship issues or coaching issues or sports issues or whatever it is, I just always looking within if my reaction in my head, or if I'm doing a lot of circular thinking, I might say to them, this is what's coming up for me. And this is what I'm working through. So I don't micromanage you. And I want to micromanage you, and I'm not micromanaging you but even though I want to. And for some reason, that acknowledging of it is so freeing. Like, I want to control everything that you're doing right now, but I'm letting go, and letting go is really hard because that is the process of raising a teenager, is the process of letting go over and over and over and over, and letting them fall on their face and figuring it out on their own. Because I have one child, the more I say, the less they want to do it. It's very Romeo and Juliet-ish. So I have to keep my mouth zipped, but sometimes I will say, I'm having a lot of anxiety. I'm having a lot of control issues around this, and it's coming from fear, and this fear is coming from this. And then what happens is they can then do it to themselves when they feel like they're micromanaging their brother or their sister or their mom or their dad or their friend or their loved one, that they can maybe not say it externally, but they can think it internally. And that's very freeing because then you can know where it comes from. And it's not like because so many parents reach out to me, they're like, "Kelly, it was like something took over and I was just out of body and I had no control over myself." And that's because it's all coming from unconscious pain. And when we realize that, then we're not so uncontrollable. We don't have that road rage, so to speak, coming all the time. Because we're like, oh, when we know where it comes from, when there's light that is shown on the pain and on the trauma and on the stress, then it doesn't have such a hold on us and in our relationships. And then you're free to move. You're free to move around the cabin, like they say on the plane, as much as you want. So let me know what you think about the book and about this podcast. And what you could do me a really big favor is I am realizing I have a hard time sharing our podcast because I feel like it puts a target on my kids' backs for some reason. All that to say, I'm not great about sharing it. So if you could share it on your social media and tag me, and then I can share it and be like, well, I'm not sharing it. Someone else shared it and I'm just sharing the tag. That would be amazing. It'd be an easier way for me to share, even though it's so embarrassing for me to share. And how this podcast has helped you, our podcast, how has it helped you? A very specific, tangible way. Has it helped you stop yelling? Has it helped you enjoy your parenting more? Has it helped you have your house more organized? Has it helped you keep up with your laundry? Has it helped you enjoy your doggies more? How has it helped you? A very specific, tangible way. And tag me in that, and then I will share it. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Hey mamas, thanks for listening. If you had any ahas, clicks, or those lightning bolt moments while listening, you have to check out my free parenting bootcamp, where we take all of this to the next level and we try to create even more awakenings for ourselves so that we can connect more with our kids and never yell at them again. You can sign up at www.coachingkelly.com. And if you really want to fill up my love cup, send me an email of what your aha was, what your click was, what was that lightning bolt moment while you were listening. I want nothing more in life than for you to have harmony in your home and to learn how to be an imperfect mom like me, which allows your kids to be imperfect too, each and every day. Thanks for listening.